Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Don't worry, guys. They found the submersible.
They found...
Oh, wait. Breaking news. It turns out everyone probably
It's in multiple pieces.
It's in pieces.
On the ocean floor.
Can
they found it in different bits.
For those of you who
dismantled.
Have
found it dismantled.
For those of you who have emerged from a coma in the last 35 seconds and have rushed to the Unnatural Selection podcast as your indefatigable source of news and truth for all things, and you haven't been aware of the submersible story, Adam, could you give us a quick recap? Mm-hmm. Not too quick. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we don't want to come up too quick and get the bends. Obviously,
yes. Nitrogen in the blood, bad times.
So just give us a quick recap of the submersible story that has taken the world by storm against all of our wishes over the last week.
There was this ship called the Titanic, and as it turns out, it sank a long time ago, and people just can't seem to get over the fact that it sank. They're just like, this boat really fucking sank. We're going to make sure that it's definitely sank.
Yeah.
So what lots of countries around the world do is they have little dive things. You can go and visit with Titanic and pay a billionaire $500,000 and he'll take you down there in his sub. In this case, there was this company called OceanGate. I don't know why I'm going through it like logically, like it's a news story, because like everyone knows what's happened. Billionaires got in a sub that wasn't well made. They went to the ocean floor and it imploded and everyone died.
Yep.
But I guess the news story is
the news media was breaking it
we
down.
We didn't know what happened.
Minute by minute. And they've got 96 hours of oxygen left and the clock is ticking. And there's just
like a clock.
24 hours. It's exactly what the 24-hour news cycle was made for, right? Hysterical, breathless reporting on a non-crisis that was already over before it started. Yeah.
George, it was absolutely aggressive. Like, never mind there's a civil war in bloody Sudan and Ukraine's having a bad time. Don't worry about the fact
La 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 la. Not interested. Boring. Tell me about the billionaires in the tin can at the bottom of the sea. That's what I care about. What about all the all the asylum seekers going to Greece that were deliberately drowned at sea? No one cares about those people drowning at sea. No one gives a shit about those people because they're brown and not billionaires. Fuck them. But let's deploy the Coast Guard and every available resource of the American military, America fuck yeah, to make sure that those billionaires come home.
You go in for hours about it, but
and I will.
The best thing about this week has been the memes probably resulting from it, because my brother got really. I had a conversation with my brother yesterday. He goes, "It's kind of fucked, isn't it? Like, these people have died, and we're just making jokes about it." And it's like, well, I mean, there's a certain, given the more we learn about this submersible.
All the same people that were COVID experts but then became Russia experts turned into fucking submersible experts over the weekend. It's the same people. Have you noticed? Actually, a submersible can't actually maneuver. A submarine can maneuver. A submersible just goes down. You fucking idiot pleb. It's just like we all looked at the same Wikipedia page this morning. What do you mean? Why are you correcting me like we should all know what a fucking submersible is and have done the whole time?
Google it. Was that, the more that we found out about this, the more shonky the whole thing, and the more not that they deserved it, but
no one deserves to get crushed to death under the sea. But
it was a case of hubris, right? Like this sort of they made a really crappy, submersible, and then they died in it. The sad part about it, of course, was the young Pakistani boy who didn't want to go, but was pressured by his entire family, and then died down there. So that's not very good.
That's super
cool.
So the reason that it collapsed was basically, as Adam said, it was made out of inferior materials. They were trying to do this whole move fast, break things, Mark Zuckerberg disruption kind of situation. Like, we're going to disrupt the submersible industry and make it out of cheaper materials, and then that way it'll be faster and easier to send people down to the bottom of the sea at length, and distributed.
Like a
scale.
Jason Statham in the Meg or something.
Oh yeah. So and of course, so generally they build these things out of particular materials. I think it's was it titanium or something. And
normally metals, because metals will allow you.
And this
to
is like,
sort of
it's a titanium carbon fiber alloy. And so that'll be lighter and cheaper, and then therefore it'll be cheaper to make it and send it down. Of course, with these kinds of submersibles, there are like agencies that go and rate these things. They go and do testing on it and go, yep, that can go down to the bottom of the sea, A+. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. That's too expensive. We're going to get this new cheap material and we're going to drive it with an Xbox controller.
No, it was not. It was like a knockoff.
Yeah, it's
Xbox
true.
controller.
It's true. At least there was an Xbox controller.
Xbox controller.
You go, okay, well, Xbox knows what they're doing. It's Premier Gaming. It's A-class gaming. Maybe they know what they're doing. This is some like Logitech third-party like GameCube controller from the 90s or something.
China from the bloody with children's hands.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, that you're just describing game controllers there, but it's like the whole thing felt chunky the more we learned about it, and then the billionaire owner of the operation of what was it called?
OceanGate, I believe.
OceanGate, which is hilarious because it's a scandal and it's already got a gate in it. It's an OceanGate gate.
It's OceanGate gate.
It's OceanGate gate. And so the billionaire owner of OceanGate was on there, some other billionaire owner. And as Adam said, each of them paid $250,000 US, I believe it was, to get on it. So like clearly none of these people are struggling financially. And so like the tide turned from like one moment being like, oh God, it's a race to the finish. They got 13 hours of oxygen left to we discovered pieces of the hull. Turns out they're probably dead. And they would have died when they lowered them down. It was about an hour and 45 into it. They lost contact with it. And then everyone just got real quiet and stayed stum until the next morning when then they were expecting them to come back up. And they're like, oh, they haven't come back up. I guess we really need to tell someone about this. So it seems like at an hour and 45, the object just collapsed under the massive pressure of being under the ocean, and then everyone died. But like the breathless kind of reporting on all of this is what's driven me nuts, because as you say, there's been so many memes generated about all of this. And Reddit
has done very well out of all this.
Because it was this, and then there was like the attempted Russian coup. And so there was that meme of the guy walking with his girlfriend, and he's turning around and looks to someone else. So his girlfriend is the submersible, and then the attempted Russian coup is the hot new girl that he's walking past, looking back at. And I was like, this is a perfect meme, and it has a shelf life of 24 hours, because I know this is one of those things. It's like one of these like big forgettable news stories that's like a big flash in the pan for a good week, and then it's gone. It's like the Suez Canal boat. Like the boat trapped in the Suez Canal. What are we going to do? Oh no, the Evergrande meme's out the ass. And then like 3 weeks from now, we will have completely forgotten that this entire thing ever existed or happened, and it'll be gone out of the news cycle. It's just exactly like a perfect example of one of those stories.
George, to be clear, we're not going to follow that trend. We're not going to pivot to the next news story. We're not going to do that. We're
better than that.
We're better than that. But of course, the next story we're going to talk about is the attempted.
Okay, so we are going to talk about the attempted coup.
Russian coup.
Yeah, we are criticizing the media for doing the exact thing that we are about to do. I guess what the key is, we didn't spend a week talking about it. You know what I mean? Like we've given the story
10 minutes,
8 minutes, 8.5 minutes. That's what it deserved. It's obviously sad that those people died, but on the other hand, the billionaires per square inch, like in terms of billionaires removed.
Yeah, I don't know. Trickle down economics, where it's
trickling down.
Ocean.
Exactly right. Yeah. That wealth is going to trickle out from those people out to their various family members. So really, it's GDP, it's jobs and growth. So speaking of jobs and growth, someone who's out of a job is the Wagner chief.
Yevgeny
Prigozhin. Now, you know how good of a reporter the reporter is because of how deeply they emphasize the accents on the name. So if it's just like standard ABC reporter, Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of the Wagner group, Russian military, sort of mercenary group. That's level one.
Yep.
Level two is Yevgeny Prigozhin. That's stage two, and you go, oh, okay, maybe this person's a specialist. They've spent some time in the region.
Yeah, okay.
They know precisely what they're talking about. Stage three is like on the ground senior Russia correspondent who's on the ground, and they'll pronounce it something like Yevgeny Prigozhin.
So basically, what you're saying is the pitch of their voice and the speed at which they say it increases.
I don't know. Is it? It's just me, or it's like it's one of those like it's like like a reporter reporting from Barcelona. It's like
it's like anything Al Jazeera does, where they're just like, and we're going to use the phonetics.
Yeah, the correct pronunciation. You fucking racist shitlords. It's like I kind of feel like I'm seeing that with Yevgeny Prigozhin. So that's me coming into the stage 2 there. I feel like it's Barcelona.
Okay.
It's me going Barcelona.
Well, here's a question. Would you
Madrid.
Wagner Group or
Madrid.
Wagner Group?
Wagner Group. Wagner like the composer.
Wagner. I like Wagner. It just sounds much more like it's a sausage shop or something.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Wagner Group.
Oh, yeah.
Come on down and get a borscht down at Wagner's. So tell us who the Wagner Group is. And,
George.
What the story's about
George. There could be. We go for hours about this, but
no, we've got a hard stop at 1 hour. So
we've got a hard stop in 1 hour. So let's go. The Wagner paramilitary group are basically a mercenary group, right? They are or have been used throughout the last sort of 10 years or so, particularly in Syria and other places throughout the world, as a way of softly, or in some cases very firmly, pressuring Russian foreign policy in an indirect manner. So where you potentially may not want to have Russian boots on the ground, you can still have Russian boots on the ground. And then there's
this mercenary group.
It's an arm's length organization, right? Now, Prigozhin, who is the guy who heads it up, is one of the most, out of the whole Ukrainian civil war, is probably one of the most crazy dudes you would come across. Okay, this guy is an ex-criminal. He's been a chef. He's been every job.
Used to be Putin's chef.
He's had a go at everything.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah. You know what? The guy had a vision board, and the first you don't succeed, try again. Because the man has risen through the ranks. I'm not saying he's a good dude, but if we start seeing him on those influencer inspiration pages, I wouldn't be surprised. The man has risen up from nothing.
And this is the thing, is that as well as being, the Wagner Group were kind of, in Syria, for instance, they were, particularly in Western media, they were very quiet, right? You didn't hear about them. They were sort of
their existence was denied for a long time, right? It wasn't even an official...
Aggressively denied.
They're no, this is not a thing that exists.
American troops literally had a fight out with them in Syria anyway. But since the Ukrainian civil war, that they've obviously been acknowledged very firmly, and Prigozhin has found that he loves a bit of social media. Okay, he loves, and this is very important in the context of this story, Prigozhin is a social media slut. Okay, this guy, he's an attention whore. Okay, he loves getting in front of the camera.
He's going to become an influencer one way or another. Now, it could have been as a Pilates instructor. It could have been for clean eating. But it turns out it's as the head of a Russian paramilitary group. Yeah, that's fine.
Russian warlord is a much better way to get...
Potato.
Media following. Very big on Telegram, which is what a lot of the Russian bloggers are using these days. So he... And then look, he's risen to prominence because after the initial Russian invasion, which was, by all accounts, a massive disaster, Wagner started to pick up the pieces and sort of play this, I guess, middle ground where they were, but while Russia's trying to sort out all their admin and, trying to get new troops in and all that stuff in the background, they took over the primary offensive in Bakhmut, right, which was the big sort of Stalingrad-esque battle that they've been having for the last God knows how long in the middle of Ukraine. Anyway, so that's how we sort of, and they took it. They basically took Bakhmut, single-handedly. It's a picture of him handing off Bakhmut to 2 Russian conscripts who did not want to be there. Anyway, but everything he does is it's on social media, and he says, contrary to everyone else in Russia, he says whatever the fuck he wants because he's got a 25,000 strong army behind him, and who's going to come and get him, and who's going to actually do anything, because if he's not there, the war is a failure, right? He's got a lot of power at the moment.
So it sounds like, he's been a big part of the successes that the Russian military has been having over the last whatever X amount of time since the war began. And so he's got a bit of a big head,
he's got a massive head,
overinflated ego. He goes, well, the things that are going well in this war, this Russia-Ukraine war, are primarily, as a result of me and what we're doing.
Yeah. And
so therefore I'm untouchable. And maybe, just maybe, I should be in charge of this whole Russia situation rather than this Vladimir Putin guy. And
this is where it gets a little bit.
See how it works out for
him. Is that he's been very critical since day one of the Russian Ministry of Defense, or MOD. Okay. Every second post he's putting up, he's being like, "Oh, they haven't given us enough ammo. They're trying to screw us." Like, every single thing he posts is critical of the MOD, and actually shows how chaotic it is behind the facade of Russian propaganda. Right? He's actually a weird outlet, and sometimes he says stuff which is completely untrue. He's just ranting. It's like it's almost, you watch some of his videos that go for like half an hour. He's just hysterical sometimes, and some of it's legit intel, and other bits are just like
he's just having some sort of manic breakdown situation.
Yeah, literally. So the Russian Ministry of Defense are very sick of him. So smash cut to 2 days ago. Allegedly, he gets on, well, not allegedly, he gets on Telegram or whatever he's using and has another rant alleging that the Russian military basically struck one of their bases with a bunch of rockets and killed a bunch of the mercenaries, basically. And then he basically decided, fuck it, we're doing a coup.
It's on like Donkey Kong.
He basically said that he was going to march to Rostov-Don, which is a city to the, I guess, east of Ukraine, western side of Russia. It's being used as a military hub, logistics hub for the Ukrainian war effort. He was like, we're just going to take it. And they did. They fucking rolled into the city in tanks. And these mercenaries, they're not, by the way, back up a little bit. These mercenaries aren't just like dudes with a couple of like submachine guns and some pistols and in suits looking very official. Like, they have armored tanks, armored vehicles. They've got artillery support. They are a private army in all senses of the word. Yeah,
so they're not like the little green men that we've seen in previous conflicts, like in the Crimean War in 2014, when it was like, oh, it's like a Russian, that we don't know who they are. They could be Russian, they could be not Russian. Yeah, they called them little green men because they got guys in green uniforms without any sort of insignias, and they were just rolling up with small arms.
I mean, allegedly some of them were Wagner guys as well.
But what I'm saying is it's a lot more. Yeah. It's much more advanced since those days, right? Yeah. They're turning up with proper battle regalia, properly armed, properly kitted out for this kind of warfare.
Yeah, 100%. And so they basically took the city, and he started them. That was one part of his army. The other part of the army started rolling on Moscow, and. Allegedly, as he said, to remove the Minister of Defense. He didn't name Putin, didn't say directly, I want to get rid of Putin, just said,
just we're going to change things up. And we'll switch you out for someone else, and all's good. Everyone, we'll all drink lemonade, the end.
And it would be cool. We'll all just sit out, have a beer, have some vodka.
Some vodka, as the case may be.
Anyway, so he started moving towards. He got within, apparently, about 330 kilometers of Moscow.
That's pretty close.
So what I think he'd assumed, and this is the thing, a lot of this stuff, we're all sort of assuming it because we're like, what was this guy thinking? And I think the thing is he wasn't thinking. I think he just assumed that members of the Russian military would just join him like it was Russia.
Whenever you plan, 2.0. Okay, listen up, guys. Whenever you're planning a coup, if any part of your plan relies on, and then the public will suddenly turn around, the proletariat will rise. If that's a step in your plan, you need to reconsider, because at no point does it's just like, oh yes, Daenerys Targaryen, people secretly toast to your honor in secret. The people will rise up when you turn up on the shores. At no point does that ever happen, where the people just turn up and the people go, hey, the good guys are here. Fantastic. We'll throw down our arms. It never works like that. It never ever works like that.
And I think it was like, because one of the things he put on one of his social media platforms is like, everyone's been really supportive. They just let us through. Yeah, of course, amazing. The 19-year-old conscript's just going to let you through when you walk up with a tank.
Yeah. It's amazing what people will do at the end of a barrel of a gun. Turns out everyone's been really accommodating. Turns out when you surround yourself with yes men, you hear the word yes a lot.
So he's like, oh, yeah, we're going through the countryside. We've had lots of people join us, about 60 or 70. I'm sure the rest of the country will do the same.
What, 60 or 70?
That's not a good sample size.
People. Not 60 or 70,000. 60 or 70 people have joined.
Not a good sample size. Anyway, so I think, and then Putin basically, the Kremlin freaked out, right? They absolutely freaked the fuck out. They locked down Moscow, George.
Yeah.
Frantically, as well as a couple of other key sites around Russia and stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, it's one thing fighting a war on, your western flank out in someone else's territory, right? It's another thing having part of your own force turn against you within your own country coming towards the capital. Like, yes, they would probably lose that fight if it were to be fought, but the mercenaries. But it would come at a cost. It's like civil war is one of the worst kind of war because it's like you lose Russians on both sides of that conflict. Yep. Everyone who fights in there, it's like double casualties for within your country, right? So clearly they were pretty stressed about it. Understandably,
they shut down the internet in Moscow.
Yeah,
like, and then
pull the big lever, boys. Ka-chunk. Internet.
Because part of this, the reason why he's got so much, I guess, clout, Prigozhin that is that Putin has, we're assuming Putin favors him to some, or has in the past favored him to some extent, right?
Yeah.
He's this sort of the hand of God, so to speak, doing things that the rest of the Russian military haven't really been able to do. So I think he assumed Putin would just like go along with it. Anyway, Putin gets on TV and is like, you need to calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
And didn't mention Prigozhin by name. No one mentions any names. But they just said anyone who
is marching to Moscow now with a 25,000 strong army better fucking chill the fuck out.
Well, you're a traitor and you'll be like dealt with as such,
prosecuted.
Basically. Yeah. They opened up a criminal investigation into him, which is code for have a nice little glass of Novichok and later.
Yeah. They've opened an investigation into him, which means, it'd be a bad day to be in an apartment window.
Yeah, don't stay on the ground floor. Everyone's on the ground floor.
Floors everywhere you go from now on, mate. Yeah, and the idea. So they negotiated a truce or some sort of agreement and said the Belarusian leader has stepped in and said, "Yep, you'll come to Belarus, and we're going to drop all the charges against you." But surely the guy's going to meet an unfortunate and untimely end out of an apartment window. I don't see Putin as the kind of guy that's just like, "Hey, bro, say la vie, live and let live."
Well, and this is the thing, right? Like the Russians. Government are showing this as a win, and then Prigozhin's like, I didn't want to have any Russian blood spilled. We're not; these aren't the enemy.
Yeah, the reason I did it because we would have smashed them too hard.
Yeah, exactly. It's very odd because, as you said, so the Belarusian president stepped in and literally brokered this deal himself, allegedly, which, by the way, is, in terms of the Putin dynamic, is a massive loss of face.
I don't believe that happened without Putin's input or say so.
I would have had to have something like that. Anyway, so yeah, and they've also, apparently what's going to happen is that of the 25,000 Wagner army, a lot of them are just going to get MOD contracts. Half of them have probably previously served in the Russian army anyway, so they're going to be brought back into the Russian army fold, and then some people will probably get prosecuted. Maybe, I don't know. And
they can't afford to court-martial 25,000 troops right now. You know what I mean?
They need them, right? They need them. There's an offensive on. Ukraine's looking across the table, being like, okay, let's. And allegedly they made some gains yesterday as well. So it's fascinating. Politically, this whole Russian dynamic is, open up a can of worms here, but it's absolutely fascinating because over the last sort of 6 months, there's been this sort of push by the MOD to restrict basically Prigozhin's power. So Prigozhin may have also seen this just as I've fucking got to do something or I'm going to lose all this power. So maybe, that was the impetus for doing this as well. Whether or not any of the Wagner guys were shelled, we don't know. Allegedly, 2 Russian helicopters were shot down in retaliation. We don't really know about that. It's the ISW, which are basically a American think tank that look at all the intel coming out of the war. It's sort of like it's going to literally reshape the way the Russian military and political sphere operates. Sidebar: the reason why this is sort of, I think this is probably why Putin's so paranoid is you start to realize when you start looking at all the PMCs.
Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean everyone isn't out to get you. You know what I mean?
Russia is, after the fall of the Soviet Union, these oligarchs, they've got a lot of power. They're basically Russian warlords.
Which is why so many of them are so clumsy fucking oligarchs falling out of apartments, 10th story windows. All of these clumsy fucking oligarchs.
You might be able to argue maybe Putin's been fighting a civil war for the last, 10 years maybe. But, one of them, the largest army, has got 50,000 people in it, which is a private army to some mining magnate or some shit. So, that's bigger than the Australian army. That's more people than the Australian army has in a private army loyal to one person getting paid by one guy.
And they've got more than a couple of dozen bushmasters at their disposal, I imagine.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
No wonder Putin's paranoid because, all around him, there are these dudes that
there's
lots
of people that want to kill him.
It goes to show that politically, maybe he's not. We thought Russian was this force majeure.
We knew that Russia was vulnerable, right? And the whole thing since the war in Ukraine started, where they thought they were going to roll into Kyiv in 3 days, and people were just going to play, smoke on the water, and praise them for liberating them. And when that didn't eventuate, that revealed that not only was Russia not as capable as the West thought it was, but also that Vladimir Putin's stranglehold on power was not as, I guess, ironclad as he thought it was either. So there have been all these cracks that have started emerging since that happened, where we thought the war was going to go one way, and it's demonstrably not gone that way. I think it shows how desperate and how weak of a leader he actually is, compared to what we'd previously thought.
It's interesting seeing the internal and it's also it's almost like history repeating itself to a certain extent. I was thinking, I was like, fuck, what if Prigozhin was successful? It's basically Russian Revolution 2.0, right? The Tsar was knocked over in 1917 or whatever it was because he tried to suppress his populace too much,
because he was weak and venal and a bad military leader, and there's a lot of comparisons,
similarities, right? And the other scary thing about it, I guess, is that a lot of the people trying to overthrow Putin are actually, what you would call worse than Putin himself. They're more extreme. The people fighting from the Ukraine sort of is supported, that have been doing sort of border attacks and that kind of thing, they're all extreme right wingers.
Well, that's the plot of A Sum of All Fears, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, the Russian nuclear tension movie, where it's like, oh well, there's some sort of internal Russian military coup situation unfolding, and that they're even more anti-West than the previous leader, and they've got their hands on a nuclear bomb, right? So it's there's that additional tension now, where it's you're not just dealing Russia versus America, but you're dealing with basically a separatist group within Russia. So the Russian government doesn't want this nuclear exchange to happen, but it might still happen because of how everything's unfolding. You could easily see something like that happening.
It could spiral, and there's nukes everywhere in Russia, so who knows. But anyway, so it's been
nice
a weird fucking
Vladimir
24
Putin.
hours.
It is nice to see Vladimir Putin not getting his way, though. That does make me happy when more cracks show, when people see how fucked up the Russian state is and how weak and vulnerable they are. It just kind of makes me go nice, that's good. I like seeing that.
Good. Winner, chicken dinner. If Russia were to collapse again, we're up to now the third collapse of Russia. Probably not a great thing for the world economy, but
no one actually is rooting. This is the thing. Is Russia's like, the West, they hate us. They want to cripple us. They want to collapse the Russian economy. And the West is just like, bro, we just need you to be a petrol pump. Can you just shut the fuck up? Just shut up and pump the petrol for us so we can all make money. Like, we don't care about
We'll give you money for the petrol.
We will pay you to shut the fuck up and just pump petrol for the rest of time. Like, there's really no, as far as I'm aware, unless, like, I don't know, you speak to a bunch of war hawks over in the American military complex who are like keen on bombing Russia since the Cold War. But like the impression I get from the West is like, we're really just happy to sit back and do capitalism. Like, we really don't care about the Russian, we don't care about the Russian economy, crippling the Russian military, destroying Russia or like integrating them into the West. Look, like, we only care about them as a source of profit because we're, rapacious capitalists. Like, that's the interest that we have in anything outside of our own borders, is just like, how can we make money from this?
I mean, there is the whole reason really for the war, I guess, and what most people seem to think is that, there's this concept of Russia still having power that it can project in the region around its borders. And this has kind of been Russian foreign policy, right, for yonks, is that you have buffer states in between, around the Russian border, which is seen as security. And I guess the anxiety is that, Russia's been invaded, how many times in its history? Like Napoleon, Hitler, probably some other times as well, the Mongols. Like, the reason why they need space and sort of, buffer countries is because they think that is the only way to stop any enemy advance, because between Poland and Moscow, it's just really fucking flat, and you can get places really quickly on flat territory.
Roll through, yeah.
So there's that's the traditional like Russian military thinking, is that we need space to be able to sap the advance out of any enemy, basically. But again, you have to assume that the enemy is hostile to begin with, which of course, if you're Putin.
It's like that line from Mad Men where it's like the guy gets into the lift with Don Draper and they have some argument over something, and the one guy says, I feel bad for you. And then Don Draper says to the other guy, he goes, I don't think about you at all. Like you are not part of my equation. That's what that's what it feels like. The West is like. Russia's like, bloody Westerners coming in here trying to tell us what to do, and the West is just like, we don't think about you at all. Like, unless there's an issue with our petrol pump, we don't think about you guys at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, the people on holiday in Italy don't really give a fuck unless, apart from the petrol prices and getting around the country. Or being, if you're in Germany, being able to turn your heater on, as it were. So
right, exactly.
Yeah, you can go into the psychology and the international dynamics of it, but this is the other funny thing. Prigozhin on his social media basically called all this out. He said the thing that Russians haven't been saying for months, years now, in that, the reason why we went to war is because we're basically inflating some dudes' egos in Moscow.
Yeah, well, he's not wrong.
Like, there's no threat. NATO don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They weren't going to attack us.
The only reason NATO continued to expand is because there was nothing else for them to do. They were just sitting around going like, well, I guess we need to justify ourselves, so I guess we'll keep expanding.
Which is a capitalist thing as well.
Yeah,
right?
It's just like, infinite growth. It was just like, the quarterly report for this month shows we haven't added any new countries to NATO. And so in order for this to keep existing, we need to keep adding countries.
But add a graph. We need a graph that goes up, George.
We were talking at one point about adding Russia to NATO, which is like, it just shows that it's all about growth. It's complete. The whole point of NATO was to contain Russia back in the day. So if you're talking about a situation where you add Russia to NATO, what is NATO for exactly? No one was really clear on that.
Some historians will point to that moment, right, as being where Putin lost his shit, because he wanted, I think, allegedly to join NATO, and they said, no, you're kind of the enemy.
Yeah.
At which point he went, well, it's actually still the same thing. And this apparently, this incident has sort of been the inciting sort of trajectory.
I think his being a
conspiracy.
Megalomaniac was the inciting incident. But,
Anyway, so look, that's happened, and I'm sure some people will fall off some balconies very soon.
Some very slippery balconies coming up.
But meanwhile,
bad day to be a slippery balcony.
In Australia, the Russians are doing their part everywhere in the world, George. Let me tell you, the Russian government employees, including one man in Australia who is squatting on a site the Russians had leased for their new embassy in Canberra, and he's refusing to leave because it's, we've done the wrong thing, apparently, the Australian government. So...
so there was an embassy that was going to be built on this side, a Russian embassy, but then essentially the Australian government said, actually we're not going to do that because it's too close to Parliament House and we're worried about, I don't know, spying efforts potentially, so we're not going to build that embassy there. However, there's a Russian diplomat that's on site, and I guess he's got diplomatic protections, so unless they decide to make him a persona non grata, which is to say you're not welcome in the country anymore, we're going to kick you out. Unless they do that, he's just kind of hanging out in this shack on the build site, just kind of chilling out, not relinquishing the site.
A demountable, by the way, one of those construction temporary houses that you see.
That is a fucking man. I'd be so annoyed if I was that. Yevgeny, we've got a very important mission for you. Okay, mate, you're gonna go and you're gonna live in a demountable in Canberra. In the middle of winter.
In the middle of winter. That's
in the middle of winter. Although I guess for a Russian, our middle of winter is probably nothing for them. He was seen out the front smoking a cigarette and a t-shirt. So I guess for him, compared to Russian winter, it's not so bad. But anyway, the opposition, Peter Dutton, in his infinite wisdom, as the suppository of all wisdom, decided to try and make this an issue, saying that Anthony Albanese was being a cuck for allowing this for some reason. I don't know exactly what the line of reasoning was, but it's somehow Anthony Albanese's fault. And here's Anthony Albanese responding to some of those comments.
Support the law. Russia hasn't been real good at the law lately. Russia has abrogated its responsibility as a nation state, and particularly as a member of the Security Council. Their illegal and immoral invasion of Ukraine shows its contempt for the rule of law, for national sovereignty, and for the way that it conducts its affairs. Australia will stand up for our values, and we will stand up for our national security. And a bloke standing in the cold on a bit of grass in Canberra is not a threat to our national security. And I think, frankly, that Russia's response here, we did predict that they wouldn't put out a media release welcoming the legislation. And one of the advice that we sought and we gave the crossbenchers and the coalition, and we thank them again for their support, was that we needed to act in the way that we did swiftly by passing the legislation through. The site is secure, and we're comfortable with our position.
What did you say? Russia hasn't been real good at the law lately.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong, but it's just probably a more erudite way of phrasing that. Thanks, Anthony.
Hasn't done good at the law lately.
Yeah, that's so. Hey, these Russians, they're no fucking good. It's me, Anthony. These fucking Russians, they ain't too good at the law.
Anyway.
But don't worry about it.
Turns out you can get stuff done in Canberra if you just say national security.
National security.
They passed it in less than a week, George, the legislation.
Yeah, good.
Both houses. See you later.
It's amazing what we can do when we agree on stuff. Isn't that great? It's pretty hilarious, but I don't know whether the guy's still there. I'm assuming he's still just hanging out, chilling out in his demountable, getting through, finishing his Netflix queue.
They haven't got any. I don't know if he's got Wi-Fi in there. I guess you got hotspot off your phone or whatever.
Yeah.
No insulation in those things though. They're pretty cold.
You get a 4G little mobile Wi-Fi situation going.
Yeah,
that's not too bad actually. I mean, it sounds like a bit of a vacation, to be honest. If you get a space heater in there, do some working out, read some books, read some, catch up on your Tolstoy. Get through War and Peace. Learn a language. That's what I said I was going to do when we went into lockdown in the pandemic. I did none of those things, by the way. Didn't learn any languages. got my Duolingo out. Barely got through the first 3 lessons in Greek.
And you did increase your whiskey collection though, so yeah.
I did. Well, I increased my whiskey collection, but I subsequently
decreased it.
drew down on the whiskey collection. So the whiskey collection, as it turns out, has remained at much the same level since the start of the pandemic, due to an increase in demand. There was another Russia story. The Russian hoax. Another Russia story is that Embattled consulting group PwC, they've reached the embattled stage in the news articles now, where they, previously, it's a bad time when the media has labeled you embattled, because prior to that, it might be something like concerns have been raised over firm PwC, or there's been an inquiry into decisions made by PwC. Now it's embattled PwC. So it's another step along the journey there. Very, very shortly, we'll be at the,
scandal ridden.
Yeah, scandal ridden. Yeah, that's the next one. And then I think the level below that is dumpster fire. Dumpster fire firm. So they're currently embattled, and we'll wait to see how it goes. But currently PwC has the embattled PwC has been caught up in a Russian cyber attack. So there was and is a cybercrime group, but like a super group, like Backstreet Boys or something like that.
Yeah.
Which has been named CLOP, CL0P, which is well known for ransomware attacks. So they've attacked a software company called MoveIt, which is a third-party platform used by organizations to transfer sensitive data between parties. So as I understand it, it's a document management system. If you want to securely transfer sensitive documents from one place to another, you don't just want to throw them in a Dropbox and send them across. Then this is the kind of, and by definition, it's kind of a honeypot for hackers, because it only contains the data on their servers, presumably is only the kind of sensitive things that people want to keep out of hackers' hands. And the hackers have gone, that's a great idea for us to hack that. So
not so secure now, is it?
Yeah, not so secure now. So they've a bunch of Australian firms have been caught up in this, as well as firms in the United States and Britain, including Shell and British Airways. They've also been caught up in this hack. So they've hacked MoveIt, and among the firms that had data compromised, PwC was included in that. So it just seems like it's not a great month to be at PwC. Mm. Or maybe it's a great month if you're a junior and a bunch of seniors above you are getting fired left and right.
It's a great time.
It's a great time to move up and assume some additional responsibility. Kyle, you've been a shit worker, but guess what? Everyone above you is fired, so you've earned a promotion.
You're head of APAC. Off you go.
You are now head of legal. It's that guy from The Simpsons, the pimply-faced kid who seems to be doing all of the menial jobs in Springfield, just be like, I don't know, Mr. Johnson. Like, no, fuck it, Kyle, you're head of legal, mate. You've earned it. Peace out.
The thing is, it probably just reveals is that, a lot of these sort of software packages, like another one's called Go Anywhere, they're all, as you said, like high-value targets for hackers. And
honeypot,
it makes me wonder as well, because, like, I know for a fact, because some, of certain people and discussions that I've had with people that work in certain places, that some of these, like there have been hacks that just haven't come to the public sphere.
Oh yeah, it is.
These are the ones that we know about. These are the hacks that we know about.
Like every software company I've worked for has had policies and practices in place for disclosure and disclosing to the public within a certain amount of time if any data gets compromised. Now, I've never been at a company while its data has been compromised, but I understand that you need to it's best practice to alert people as soon as possible to when their data has been compromised, right? As far as I'm aware, in Australia, the legislation, I don't know if there's any legal kind of requirements on companies to disclose when you have been hacked and when your personal data has been released, because I'm certain that there have been cases where a hack has happened, maybe it hasn't even been discovered, or it has been discovered and it hasn't necessarily been the information about it hasn't been proliferated out to the public in order for them to find out whether they've been hacked. Because I've found, my dad passed away a couple of years ago, and I've still got his email. And, every now and then I'll get messages saying like, oh, a new login for your Spotify happened in in Korea or something. And it's like, okay, well, that's probably not legit. Let's see if it's picked up those credentials somewhere on the dark web and someone's tried to log into it. So I've had to shut those. But it's like I didn't hear about any Spotify hack. I didn't hear about any, there are all these different things popping up where it's like, it's a defunct account. It's not connected to anything. So it's like, I suppose it's not a big deal. You just go and reset the password and shut it down.
And your credit card details or something. Yeah.
Oh, those have long since changed. But it's like, clearly hacks and things like this are happening every day on a regular basis that we're not hearing about.
Yeah.
And, there's Have I Been Pwned, the website that we've talked about in the past, which is a free to use.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. You definitely have. If you've got an email, you have been pwned. So Have I Been PWNED is the name of the website. And you chuck your email in there. And as far as I know, this
right now, is that what's happening?
As far as I know, it's not a scam. I mean, we can check. You can check if you like. But yeah, I mean, I've been caught up in a number of hacks, and these are just the ones that are public. So Apollo, which is a service that I've never even fucking heard of. Canva, Cove, Dropbox, Kickstarter, Mashable, Patreon, and Zynga. I didn't even know I had a Zynga account.
Did I tell you that? So I had my information stolen.
You've been personally, like your identity has been stolen.
I've had identity theft. Yeah, and what happened was it was from same thing. It was OneForm. So I applied for a rental application in 2018, and either the breach happened on the real estate agent's end, or it happened maybe within the software platform itself. But yeah, they took a bunch of data, and I did not find out about it until I had my identity stolen. So it's kind of scary. Although looking at Have I Been Pwned, I have had no pwnage found. So I don't know how accurate this website is.
Well, this is just based on publicly available like data that's been published, with people's information publicly on the web. So I'm sure there's lists on the dark web circulating that have other data. This is just like, this is the stuff we know for sure that's publicly stated that your information has been leaked. So it's a good place to start, but it's by no means exhaustive. Right. This is just a guy who's put this website together and has all this information. So it's not a massive organization. This is just a dude.
The dude in his basement.
Yeah, helping people out. As far as I know, it's not a scam because maybe it's like another way to collect your email address. Who knows? But I don't think so. So cybersecurity, and I think it's going to increasingly be a problem with AI. Like we're talking about ChatGPT. Yeah. Because like previously you could see scams sort of coming a mile away. You get a letter or an email from someone and it doesn't look quite right. The English is not quite right. Like all this sort of stuff. You go, I think that's probably a scam, right? It looks like a scam. Well, with ChatGPT, you can just get someone to write a perfectly worded email in the King's English, as it were. And no one would be able to tell the difference. It's going to look and sound like a regular English speaking person.
I mean, the email address definitely says .ru, but like apart from that,
well, google.com or something. Yeah, it's just like I'm sure that there's still ways to check the email slug and make sure it's coming from who you say it's coming from. But I think with advances in artificial intelligence, it's going to make these kind of phishing attacks that allow people to get access to your account much more prevalent and much more much easier for them to execute at scale.
Kind of looked like, the Unabomber was a crazy guy and he's died recently passed away. Yeah. But, you look at his sort of philosophy, which was kind of like the technology is going to kill us.
It's one of those things.
A few points.
You've gotten deep into like serial killer literature when you read a manifesto and you're like, aside from the killing people stuff, he had some good points. There's a lot of stuff in here. It was pretty prescient. Like, I don't want to say, obviously
you're part of the system, man.
Don't murder people with bombs, but
Maybe go live in a cabin for the woods without a phone.
Social media is pretty bad.
Yeah,
I'm on board with that. Like,
yeah, unless it's of course social media, which the government of Australia is trying to put out in sort of defence of their policies. In which case, all good. Don't worry about it. There's no problems. I don't know what I was trying to do with that segue. It's all good. The next story on our list. I'm just going to go to that.
You could just say, and the next story.
And the next story. The next story, George, is that the federal government's housing bill that we were talking about, I think last week or the week before, that didn't pass the Senate, and as it turns out, and they basically, I guess postponed it. The Greens pushed a motion to postpone it till October, so that can be more thoroughly debated, which is now got a lot of people talking about, is it technically a defeat, and would another defeat trigger a double dissolution election?
So there's a few things here. So Labor is saying, yes, it counts as a defeat. And the Greens are saying, no, it's not a defeat. It's just a deferral. We've moved it down.
Deferring it.
We're deferring it for whatever it is until October. The reason that's important is because if the motion is defeated, and that happens 2 times, the government is then within its rights to call a double dissolution election, which is to say, like, we've been denied supply from the crossbench. We're trying to get bills through. We can't operate government, right? Because the crossbench, the people in the Senate, aren't playing ball, essentially. And so we're going to have a whole brand new fresh election where both sides of the Senate, all the seats in Parliament are up for grabs all at once. And the idea is, it's kind of a good thing, the double dissolution thing that we have, which I don't believe America has. It prevents gridlock. So if you do have a situation where you've got a recalcitrant crossbench who's not playing ball, who's not negotiating, the government of the day can say, okay, well, we're going to go back and have fresh elections. Now, they might return all the same people back to the same seats and you're faced with the same problem.
You can roll the dice, though.
But you can roll the dice, right? And then like maybe you might get a crossbench that's friendlier or stacked with your own party, and then you've got a supermajority again and you can pass things through.
And the reason why that's important, I guess, is in a normal election, you only ever vote in half the Senate. Correct. Right? Not the full Senate. Now, I think
senators have a 6-year term. Was
there a double
dissolution. The last one was in 2016.
Yeah. And that was a big deal at the time. Everyone was like,
a very big deal.
We're doing a double diss.
Yeah.
And it was, it was fine. It happened.
It was okay. It's so funny. For all of the breathless headlines about it, everyone completely forgot that it happened. I had to look it up. I was like, when was the last time? 2016. Right. Yeah. Gotcha. So this, I think the reason that Labor is kind of flagging this is because they're trying to communicate to the Greens like, hey, if you fuck us on this again,
we'll hurt you more than it hurts us.
Yeah. It hurts you more than it hurts me. But I see that's the thing is I don't know. I kind of am inclined to think that the Greens would pick up a few seats if we had an election tomorrow. I don't like the seats certainly aren't going to the Liberals, right? I don't think Labor would lose any seats to the Liberals or many seats, but I think it is possible that they could lose some to the Greens in some of those inner city.
And depends how bad, like if they call it, let's say they hold October, right? So let's say they call it, say, December. By that point, we're another 3 rate rises in, the economy's in full recession. Like, you may not want to do a double dissolution election then if the optics are bad. It probably depends. But at the moment, if they did it, I mean, odds are Labor would come out probably about the same. I
guess they're just sort of flagging it to the Greens, like, yeah, we can... we can do a double dissolution and start from a fresh slate again. So like, don't fuck us on this again, I guess is the idea. The thing that I find interesting is all the, there were reports this week that, okay, so this housing future fund bill didn't get up, and like housing builders everywhere are just fed up because they had plans to start building things next week, and now they can't.
No, they didn't
build them. And I was
they didn't.
I was like, that smells like some Labor PR there. That sounds like complete horseshit.
Someone has been backgrounding.
I was shovel ready, man. I was ready to go tomorrow, but I wish I could, but I can't But it's too late now because they said no. But bro, I was ready to go. I had my foot in the shovel, ready to go, bro.
I'm pretty sure that's just the Russian guy sitting on the side in Canberra. He's ready to go with the shovel. Double.
He's getting paid by the Australian Labor Party as well as the Russian government. No, I like obviously not, because the whole idea of it is that it's a future fund. Is that you put $10 billion aside now, and then it's going to pay out $500 million. They recently tweaked the legislation to say, it's going to pay out $500 million a year from the 2024-2025 financial year onwards, regardless of how the investments perform. So again, that's the Greens having pushed them on this to get that concession. Before it was like, whatever the investment returns are, that's what we'll put into housing. Anyway, so the Greens have pushed them on that. They got this $2 billion that they've allocated out to the states in order to help with building housing. I know it is obstructionist, and yes, it sucks that we're going to have to wait another 3 months for this legislation. But I also kind of think what the Greens are pushing for is good and needs to be pushed for.
I don't know about the rent freeze. I don't know how that works in practice.
I don't think you won't get a rent freeze because
I don't think that works in practice.
Because both major political parties have donor interests that are in the capital owning class. There are too many people that would get pissed off by a rent
But also,
freeze,
how does that work for the economy? You've got rates going up. Landlord can't cover his rent, so I guess the rent doesn't cover the mortgage. So I guess you sell the asset.
Well, maybe that's the answer. Is more people selling leads to lower prices, means that people can buy rather than rent in the first place. I'm not sure. I don't really understand the thinking behind it.
Not to mention that every state has a different, it's the state's call. They all have their own
systems,
legislation right around it. Labor can't sit there in the federal government and go, we're going to make everyone do this.
Realistically, we're not going to get a rent freeze. We're not going to get sort of controls like that. But I think what it is useful.
But that's what they want. That's what they want.
But I think it is useful from the Greens' position to have this extreme sort of leftist position. Okay, this is what we want. And what we'll accept is more billions of dollars in social housing, right? So I think it is useful to drag the Overton window to the left to say, this is what we're arguing for. And then to have the Labor government come to them with concessions on other things. We wouldn't have had that $2 billion fund, but for the Greens doing this, right?
But what's the next step logically for the Greens, though? If they don't want to, if they secretly don't actually want a rent freeze, they're just saying that.
We're not, well, I think they probably do want it. The question is, will they be happy with the second horse, right? You don't have to get the first horse, your first pick at the stable, but are you going to be happy with that's a popular negotiating position. Is you negotiate for the first horse if you're happy to settle for the second best horse.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what are they playing.
This is politically.
Are they playing 12D chess? I don't know.
I don't think they are. I think it's optics. Adam Bandt, the reason why he did so well, particularly when he first came into Parliament, was that he was seen as a moderate, right? Okay, the traditional Greenies that were a part of the Green Party is Bob Brown and all the anti-forest or anti-logging guys from Tasmania, that whole cohort that were just no, we're not going to say yes to the emissions trading scheme. We're going to shoot it. We'd rather vote with the Liberals against an emissions trading scheme.
Yeah, you don't want to make the perfect the enemy of the good. That's been the criticism of the Greens for a while, right? And I think Adam Bandt has widely been seen as someone who's got solidly left credentials, but someone who's willing to work within the system to get what he wants. Right? And I think it might just be another couple bill for this social housing fund. I think if we get that, then that'll probably be worth it.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it is just an optics thing where they'll delay it till October and then they'll just pass it through. Because
I think the Greens want to show that you can't just give us crumbs and push us around and we'll pass whatever you want us to pass. They
want the perception of power.
They want at least the perception of hey, well, you don't want to play ball with us and give us something that we want. We're going to make you wait 3 months. We're not going to vote it down, okay? Because we know ultimately it is a social good, right? It does get us closer to something that we want, but we want to get more out of you. And I think that is the purpose of the Greens, is to push the Labor contingent further to the left than they would otherwise go without the Greens having that kind of sway, right? So I think it's good. I just don't want us to get too hung up on this rental. If you actually want to burn things down over a rental freeze, I think you're going to be sad. You're going to be sorely disappointed. I just don't think that's realistic. because you want to push Labour to the left,
time,
but you don't want to push them.
Yeah.
Like there's only so far you can push them to the left from where they are, right? So
yeah. And you're also losing time on the investments, right? Like, if you delay the whole thing by 7 months, then that's half a year's worth of interest effectively. You're not, embedded growth that, that you're not getting, which eventually means less money. Well, it would have meant less money
But yeah, this idea that, so it's the investment returns that then pay for, social housing projects and whatever at a minimum of $500 million a year going forward. Like, I think that's all good. But the idea that people had like shovel-ready projects that are about to go, oh, bros, I hired all these people, bros, and now I was going to start building tomorrow, and then now I can't because the Greens didn't push this bloody bill through. It's like, no, well, that's obviously not true. That's obviously
I work in construction,
PR
and
nonsense.
I can tell you, it's really hard to get a fucking permit to do anything.
Oh, no. Oh, bros, I was about to go through, and I was about to start building tomorrow, bros.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of like developers that would want a slice of this pie and that would have designs off the shelf.
But even if it was passed yesterday, it's still not going to kick in for another year and a half. You know what I mean? Like it's not really.
There's going to be there'll have to be a committee that'll have to work out how the funds to get out, and legislation will have to go through, and they'll tweak it, and anyway. So it's a whole thing. Also, in news with the Australian government and Parliament and that kind of thing, Lidia Thorpe, who we spoke about last week. She has formally come out and said that she is going to support the No campaign.
What? What? No, that's crazy. What?
So previously she just said...
Shocker. What an absolute shocker that Lidia Thorpe wasn't going to support the Yes campaign. I personally am shook.
So shook. She previously said that she was not necessarily going to give her full support to the No campaign. She was going to sort of, tread the middle ground. She was doing her own thing.
She called them a bunch of white supremacists only a couple of weeks ago, as I recall, saying I'm not going to side with people like Pauline Hanson and these kind of extremists.
Yeah. That's probably the weird thing, right? Is that she's going to be effectively pushing the same. Well, I mean, her point is that she wants a treaty. It's more of a black sovereignty movement. But she's
the best way to a treaty is to have no Aboriginal representation to Parliament. That's the best way to get a treaty with the Aboriginals, is to completely avoid any way of communicating Aboriginal wishes to the Parliament. That's definitely the best way to go about it.
But look, I mean, at the moment, and there's another article that who's the Laura Tingle put out the other day, which is basically that, well, if it's kind of a shit time to have a referendum right now because economic concerns generally outshine social issues when push comes to shove. So if, again, in 6 months, 5 months, 3 months, however long it takes to actually get to the referendum, if people are losing their homes and going bankrupt and businesses are closing down and shit gets bad, then people aren't really going to give a shit about this. And look, I mean, that could work well or not well for the each campaign. I'm not really sure how it would affect it, but I mean, it means there'll be less focus on it, which means that
I saw some interesting numbers from
less oxygen to spread your story.
Yeah. I saw some interesting numbers from Casey Briggs this morning talking about the No campaign and the Yes campaign officially launched this week. It was like, hey, oh yeah, finally, nicely done, guys, right on time. So they officially launched. But basically Casey Briggs was looking at the numbers saying, okay, well, this is what the no vote has, based on an aggregate of a number of different polls over the last 6 months. Here's what's happened to the vote. The yes vote's gone from something like 65% on average down to, sort of like 51%. Yeah. The no vote's gone up from whatever the inverse of that is, 25, 30% up to, 49% over the last couple of months. And it really has been as a result of the incredibly negative campaigning coming from the no side, and from the yes side just kind of like idly standing by and doing
on their pants.
Sweet fuck all, while Peter Dutton's going, oh, no, it's just we need a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
No, not in the form of a 270-page report. That's too much detail. Or, well, yeah, what about one-on-one consultations with experts who fed into the report? No, I'm a kind of a visual learner, and I don't like this kind of, this is, that doesn't really meet my, actually kind of of prefer audiobooks, if I'm completely honest.
He's a podcast guy.
I'm really a podcast guy. I like listening at 1.8 times speed because I really think I get more information in that way.
Just sidebar, that's what George does. But anyway,
I'm making fun of Peter Dutton for doing the exact thing that I do. Listen at 2 times speed, Adam. I'm not a mug. But yeah, just the idea.
I don't know.
Of being...
It's looking good. Like if any state falls over, like Tasmania, which apparently just like they just don't.
Well, and this is where all the Facebook funding for the No campaign is going. This is what he was looking at, Casey Briggs, today. It's like the Facebook advertising dollars. You know, even though it's only 110.
Facebook's dead, man. Like, get on a new platform.
If you're targeting boomers, Facebook is the place to be because they put about $110,000 into Facebook ads. Right, not a huge amount, but a fairly substantial amount. And the states that they're targeting, they know that they'll probably they think the No campaign thinks that the yes vote will probably get through on the majority, right? The majority of Australians will likely vote for the yes campaign, right? But they know that if they target the second condition of a referendum, which is that at least 4 states need to get a majority as well, then they're much more likely to succeed.
Isn't it all the states?
4 states.
I thought it was all the states had to get up.
That's my understanding, is that 4 states need to do a majority.
Have a look.
We'll look it up.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then they're targeting the states that are most likely, filled with hyper conservatives in order to influence those states. So the amount of advertising dollars has primarily gone to Tasmania, South Australia, Western Australia, Queensland, like places that are not typically. Say again?
It's a majority of 6 states.
Okay, a majority of 6, so not all of them.
Yeah. So a majority of Australians vote to approve the change as a total, and in a majority of the 6 states. Well, because there's 6 states and 2 territories. Did I get that right? Do I know Australian?
Majority of the states, which would
be... So the territories don't count.
Which would be
basically.
4.
Yeah.
So they're not counting.
No. In a majority of... I see what you're saying. In a majority of the 6. Yeah.
So of the 6 states, you only need 4.
Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. I misunderstood that. I was thinking that it was like one state sinks the ship, but there you go.
No. So you could feasibly have a situation where the No campaign is successful, even though it's not the majority of the populace, even though the majority of the populace in a handful of states, such as Tasmania or Queensland and maybe, something like that, could sink the referendum as a whole. So that's what the advertising dollars are currently targeting, is they're targeting voters on a state level.
England and Tasmania, basically.
Yeah, the racist states, as they're otherwise known.
Oh, Jesus.
Anyway. So I thought that was really interesting because it means that you don't need to win a 50-50 down the line vote in order to successfully destroy the referendum. That's why it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to win referendums for this exact reason. And unless the Yes campaign gets their ass in serious, we've been out here alone, man, waving the flag, going, Yes campaign, we've been out here by ourselves.
3 white dudes in a podcast, just getting it done.
And my mum and my sister listen to this and that's about it. So we need to get some serious media press attention behind this. Otherwise this referendum is not going to be successful. And I think it's going to give the Albanese government a pretty big black eye if they can't get this over the line. It was the first thing he said as part of his victory speech on election night, is that we're going to implement, the recommendations from the Uluru Statement from the heart. That was the first thing he mentioned. So if they don't get this across the line, it's going to look really bad. But as you say, as the economy increasingly likely, the way it looks is it keeps falling into a recession, I think people are going to care less and less about these social issues and more about their being able to make their mortgage repayments and stay in their houses. So who knows how that really affects things. But yeah, I don't know. Lydia Thorpe, man, it's just kind of like, if you're on the same side as Pauline Hanson and Michaelia Cash, take a long, hard look at yourself. Pauline Hanson got up in Parliament in the Senate this week and said some absolute fucking dog shit about the stolen generation, basically saying how the stolen generation was a good idea and how some of those kids would have died if they didn't get taken out of there. And you've got 60,000 years of contiguous Aboriginal history and connection to this land. But what about my connection with this land? And, basically I don't know. The whole thing was just weird and fucking gross. And then here's poor old David Pocock standing up, just being like, "Oh, that all seems pretty weird to me." But I reckon the voice sounds like a good idea because if it's broke, don't fix it. But it clearly is broke, so maybe we should fix it. And everyone was like, "Yay!"
He's behind
Lydia Thorpe and
Pauline, who sit next to each other.
So he's just sitting there with this expression on his face going, "Dear Christ, Jesus, fuck. What is going on?
Someone call lunch.
What is going on?" And it's funny
because... Got to
get
myself a chicken schnitzel.
I happened to catch it live because I was just sitting there in the Hyundai service center getting my fucking car serviced. So I had nothing to do. I was just looking at the television.
This week.
Just looking. I varnished the deck. I painted the nursery. I got the car serviced. I've been fucking kicking goals this week, ticking things off my list left and right. Anyway, so I was just sitting there in the in the service center waiting for the car. So I had nothing better to do. So I just happened to catch this all live. I was just like, oh my God, our Senate is a fucking dog's breakfast. This is an absolute joke. And Lydia Thorpe, by the way, if you're on the same side as Pauline Hanson on fucking anything, that should make you just take a moment to reconsider exactly what the fuck is going on and which side you've picked. But like, it is just amazing to me that the reporting out of all of this, the media was just kind of like, yeah, we're just going to memory hole all of that. The thing that we're going to take out of this, legislation to conduct the referendum that got passed is the
missing submersible. Wait, let's go to change something.
Right, something's going on with Russia. No, the stories that came out of it was like David Pocock going on all of the news, the various news outlets and saying like, yeah, we obviously need to do something. Like, I'm an independent senator. I'm unaffiliated with either major party, and I think we should do something about this. Like, it was good to me, I think, that the media kind of memory hold that stuff. Crazy. Just kind of like, decided what the Overton window was, and the reporting about it was all like, the historic legislation passes Parliament. And it was a massive majority that passed it through. But even so, the fact that those people are in our Senate and like just the ABC 24 is just allowing them to spew unvarnished. I want to say it's like, I think what Pauline Hanson did in the Senate this week was hate speech. And if it wasn't protected by parliamentary privilege, I actually think it would be legally actionable. Like actual hate speech being publicized in our parliament.
She's been doing it, man, for 30 years.
I know, but
she ain't gonna stop.
It is weird to see like completely unvarnished fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Just like black tar heroin, pure weapons grade fucking like, crazy racist hate speech happening in our parliament.
She's been quiet for a while. People sort of forgot about Pauline. Like, if you're not in Queensland, everyone's forgot about Pauline because she just got out of the news cycle for so long. And I feel like almost in some ways, whenever there's an issue about racial issues, it's like, oh, this is my time to shine.
All right, it's Pauline. It's your time to shine.
Like, and then it's like,
whips off the burqa.
Say all this crazy, literally, she'll say all this crazy shit because that's her wheelhouse, right? That's the thing that gets the base riled up. That's the shit that all those people in Queensland go, oh yeah, fuck, I was just saying something that makes sense. What about my connection to the land, George? What about my connection?
I've been here for dozens of years. It's exactly the same thing as the Aboriginals who have got 60,000 years of contiguous history, the oldest living civilization on Earth. It's basically the same thing. My granddad came here after World War II, and it's exactly the same thing.
So
insane.
It's almost strategic from her at this point.
Yeah, you're right. It's anytime there's issues with that spark racial animus, Pauline absolutely wants to get in the thick of it. I shouldn't be surprised, but it is just jarring to see like hate speech on ABC 24 at 11 o'clock in the middle of the morning. I was just like, I have not had enough coffee for this. I'm not ready for this.
Well, you're probably one of the like 4 people in Australia that are watching it at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, this is true.
Now we are running out of time. In fact, we've gone over time. Do you want to like caption the next 2 articles, or do you want to?
No. Let's just skip to the dessert, the little cherry on top of the shit pie that has been this week, and talk about how Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are going to hold a cage fight? ?
That's literally like that's the story. They had a Twitter feud, argument, discussion, whatever you want to call it, and the story speaks for itself. A Meta spokesperson told the BBC.
Why is Zuck on Twitter? Isn't that kind of your whole? Don't you like your whole thing is Facebook and Instagram? Why are you even on Twitter, bro? Like,
I don't know. Mr. Musk posted a message on his social media platform that he was up for a cage fight with Mr. Zuckerberg. Mr. Zuckerberg, the boss of Facebook and Instagram, parent company Meta, then posted a screenshot of Mr. Musk's tweet with the caption, "Send me the location." And I think they're going to go the Vegas Octagon, which is where they do all the MMA stuff.
Quote,
stuff.
"The story speaks for itself," unquote, a Meta spokesperson who's questioning her entire career told the BBC. Mr. Musk then replied to Mr. Zuckerberg's response with Vegas Octagon, which is the location of many a UFC bout. So
just said all that.
I just
listening.
I just don't like why is this? I mean, great. I mean, I love the idea of these two shithead billionaires punching the shit out of each other. Like personally, I love that. And maybe if the money goes to charity or something, maybe I'd even watch these weird, skinny, fat, pale weirdos beating the shit out of each other. But I just it just strikes me that two of the most powerful, popular people on our planet are just like little fucking whiny teenage man babies who's just like, come and fight me, bro. I'll fuck you. I'll come around with my fucking cousin. I'll fucking fuck you up, bro. I'll come around in my Subaru and I'll fucking fuck you up, bro. That is the level of discourse between two of the most powerful people in the world, is we're literally going to literally measure our dicks by having a physical fighting competition in the octagon. Great. Fantastic.
Like you've got like Logan Paul, right? He's a massive YouTuber, whereas like he was like, oh yeah, I'm going to take up, like he actually pivoted his whole career to be like a boxer or whatever. But like initially he was just a YouTube dude.
Yeah.
So there's been a few of these of like, celebrities or people that are well known.
Personally,
I 1v1 me. It's like, okay.
I would much prefer it if Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg both dedicated the majority of their time to getting punched in the head as opposed to running the world's media and technology. Personally, I think that's a much better route for them to go. But it does seem weird that is how about, crazy idea, how about women just run things for a while? Like, obviously, just men, we've had a good run. And by a good run, I mean a terrible, terrible run over the millennia. Let's just get a few more Catherine the Greats in here and just get some female energy up in this whole kind of oligarch running the world.
I mean, Russia's done very well under females.
There you go.
It's true when
Catherine the Great.
Yeah, I mean, she did also gender wash Ukraine and do a bunch of other weird shit, but that's fine. We'll just ignore that. That's okay.
There's ups and downs. Men haven't had
gender wash. What's that I'm looking for? Not gender wash.
I don't know what you're referring to.
They're like popular. Like they moved a bunch of Russians in and moved a bunch of Ukrainians out, kind of thing. But anyway.
Okay.
What's that? That's
cultural genocide.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Gender washing. That doesn't even make sense. Anyway, I think I'm done because I'm literally just saying nonsense at this point.
I'm just saying that if this is the level of like peak male kind of, I think we just get a little, just hand the keys over, go, it's been a great 10,000 years. Thank you very much. I would appreciate it if the female side of things.
Would you like, it's like when you've had a few drinks, would you like to drive?
I'm not okay to drive.
I'm not okay to drive.
I'm drunk on 10,000 years of misogynist history. And I would love for you to take the wheel.
Please drive us home.
Please drive.
Or is that a chauvinistic thing as well? It's because it's like we can't be stuffed. We're just like
we've just made too much of a hazard. We were stupid. We had too many drinks. We didn't think ahead. Yeah. And now you just got to let your pregnant wife, pick up the pieces and drive us home.
Who's really annoyed because she wanted to be in bed 3 hours ago, and you were like, "No, I'll just stay for one more
drink."
Yeah.
It could be. Maybe that's really what we've done throughout all of male history is but fuck things up so bad that at some point we've inevitably had to hand the keys over to a female in order to clean up our mess. Yeah, I think that's a perfect encapsulation of our history up until this point. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you visit us on all the social medias that have ruined the world, that have, do, or ever will exist, at our handle Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and mother flippin' TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me down to the Russian embassy site, or former Russian embassy site, where I'll be having a brief chat with the person involved, maybe slipping him some special tea from Vladimir Putin himself.
Yeah, we've got it on special order straight from Russia. So, I think it's really important that you have this polonium tea. I mean, it's delicious tea.
delicious tea. And what's Tom's Twitter handle again? Tom D.
At Tom D. Heath.
At Tom D. Heath, yeah. Check him out, who fortunately couldn't be with us today because he is seeing his family in Canberra.
He's going to swing by that demountable with a special package from Vladimir.
Actually, he could probably do it. Yeah,
he could probably deliver it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys. I love your faces. We will see you next week.